Yes, yes, y'all. You know what time it is? It is time for the light. It is time for the love. It is time for the goodness in the world. It is time for the dailybreadproject.com. And I've got a guest joining me in just a second. He might have had to download the new Zoom, as did I. So we'll give him a second to get on here, and then we'll be rocking into it. And wanted to give you guys a quick heads up. I listened to this thing on iTunes, the audio version, and I'm not sure why the audio doesn't sound the same as it does when we're on video or when we're on Facebook. But I will give you a heads up. Much better quality sound when you go to thedailybreadproject.com and listen to the videos there or watch the videos there. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Don't know yet, but I will figure it out. And I see my guest is here. So, guest, I'm going to bring you into the room. I'm going to bring us live to Facebook, and then I'm going to give you a proper intro. So, in that order, I'll bring you into the room and then bring this thing live to Facebook. And as long as the technology gods cooperate with us, this will be going live to the Podcast Factory page. I'll also share it on my personal page. But we're coming at you 4 days a week, 10 a.m. Eastern, thedailybreadproject.com for details. And we'll be launching into this in just a second as everything gets set up and my awesome guest gets into the room here with me. And I'll have to do a screen share because I want to show you something I've got. And it looks like it's all working. It's going live to Facebook. Let's do a proper intro and then we'll rock into this. You are listening to the dailybreadproject.com. The world is crazy. There's chaos, there's panic, there's pandemics. And I say hogwash to all of that. We don't need none of that here because this is where we bring you leadership in good and hard times. And for those of you who don't know, that's an acronym. We bring you the light, leadership in good and hard times. And I can't do it by myself. I'm only one man, and I know when to ask for help. And that is exactly why I have my guest here today. Mr. Jimmy J. Williams is here to join me, a friend from Coach, fellow podcaster, Live a Life by Design podcast, and a super fun guy. What's up, Jimmy?
Hey, good morning. Thank you, JR.
Dude, look at you. You got a whole studio there. You look awesome.
Just another day in paradise, my friend. You know how it is. You make the world you wish to live in, is what I say.
And this is the guy, and this is why he's on the show right now, ladies and gentlemen, because he is all about living a life by design. His podcast is called Live a Life by Design. Look him up. You'll find his website, Jimmy J. Williams. Look him up. The dude is inspiring. I met him at Coach, and I have not forgotten about that. And so what I'm going to do, Jimmy, is I'm going to give you the lay of the land so you know where we're going. I'm going to give you a roadmap, and then I'm gonna let you go, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. So here's how we do it. We talk about power, positivity, leadership, love, and opportunity. And the first question I'm going to ask you, Jimmy J. Williams, from where do you draw your power?
Oh, gosh, JR, I'll be very frank with you. First and foremost is my faith in God, to be very truthful with you. We use that as our foundation for everything. And then I believe that God opens doors for me to people just like yourself. I have been grateful to meet people like Zig Ziglar and those people that are empowering me with their positivity. And to be very frank, I was just around a lot of positive people as a child, JR. So when I was raised up the youngest of 6 children, we didn't have a lot of money. I don't ever remember any excess money around, but I do remember we had a lot of love. Never missed a meal, as you can tell when you meet me. So I always had positivity in my life. My parents came from a very hardworking blue-collar background. My dad had a PhD in 6th grade and decided that was all he wanted, and he quit school. He went to farming. He said, I can make 50 cents a day, man. Why do I need to be in school, right? Back in the day. And then my mother, of course, got a GED and eventually got an associate's degree after after I had completed undergrad school. So my parents were always about edification and education. In other words, they built each of us, the 6 children, up to go out and change the world for better, as I say on my podcast all the time. And the power that I receive, though, is the continual feeding of these areas of my life with my reading, my praying, my studying, with my friendships, people like you, JR, that I meet. One time I meet you at Coach and I go, this guy has made an impact on me in one day. And that is where I really feed my emotions as well as my foundation for progress in my life.
You are an abundance of energy, an abundance of fun, and an abundance of positivity. And so let's dig into positivity a little bit more. So you said you grew up with that framework in place. How do you keep that? How do you cultivate it? How do you stay positive when everything's going crazy?
Okay, I do do three simple things every day, and these three simple things are just this. I first guard my mind by not feeding it the negativity of the news world. JR, you can be on any news station for 5 minutes or less and gain all of the negative news you wish to hear that day. Is that not true?
That year.
Yeah, well, that year, good point. And so what I do is I don't watch the news. So what I do, I get daily feeds from my area that I work within, which is wealth management, and we serve many, many families and provide services to them that we know will help make their life the way they wish to live it in a bigger, better, bolder fashion as they desire. But I limit the amount of input of negativity into my mind. The second thing I do, and this is very simple, people can put these to work today, JR. This is what I call implementation factors, okay? So I minimize or eliminate negative news in my day. Second thing I do is I feed my mind with that pure, powerful, positive message. I read my Bible every morning. Right now, I'm actually going through a deepening of faith type session of reading the words of Christ himself as he taught his disciples, as he taught the multitudes, the 5 loaves and 2 fishes and these things, man. So it really gives you that positive feel when you get through feeding your mind with that. And then the last thing I do is I reinforce my mind. So what I'm doing is I'm ceasing the negative, I'm feeding with the positive, and then I'm reinforcing all day. And why I reinforce is I listen to very positive podcasts. I listen to a lot of Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn, even though he's deceased, is still impacting my life on a daily basis. I bet I have bought every book, audio, video. If Jim put his name on it, I bought it. I'm just telling you, that's how life is for me. Zig Ziglar, same thing. As you can probably see behind me, I have a library. I listen to The Great Courses, which is another organization where I get DVDs or CDs of great courses that give me that biographical background of how people that started out far worse than you and I ever did and rose to be a very much leader in their world for positivity. And I will say to you that if I do those three things on a daily basis, which is not going to shock your audience with me, that's part of my daily routine. It's actually written into my startup routine for the day. And so every day, Monday through Sunday, man, I do the same things. Now, I know what your audience is going to say. They're going to say, oh my gosh, this guy's a robot, man. How can anybody do this? I promise you, if you're feeding your mind with that pure, powerful positivity on a daily basis, you won't have room in your mind for the devil to get in there and give you any negativity or some relationships. And to be very frank with you, I do limit my relationships to those types of people that I feel are going to help put some deposits back into my brain and my emotions and my personality. I don't have a lot of relationships with people that are what I call negative Nancy's. And you may have listened to my podcast. I talk about don't hang around negative Nancy's, right? Or putrid Paulas. You don't want those that are just going to be really negative people, right? So that's what I do.
Now, anybody that is listening here knows Jim Rohn, heard Jim Rohn all over everything you said there. I'm listening to some Brian Tracy this morning, Focal Point. So I'm with you on all the old dudes. In fact, I did a couple videos, and that was last week, just listening to Jim Rohn talk about the oxygen mask. You got to take care of yourself before you take care of your kids. The best thing you can do for your family and for the people you serve is to take care of yourself. And all I hear you saying is, I take care of me so I can take care of you. That's so Jim
Absolutely.
Rohn.
Absolutely. And so the thing to me is people read all the time. I talk to people, they go, oh, I read 100 books a year. And I go, but really, how many books do you read? And when I define to them what reading is to me is not just skimming through the pages and say, oh, I got another one done, check it off my list, and I read more than anyone else in the reading club. Reading to me is taking a text of information that is impactful and powerful, and then not just JR reading it, implementing it, digesting it, applying it. Jim Rohn had another statement I love. I'm not Jim Rohn. I don't have his philosophical bent. I didn't come from Idaho, from a farm. As he said, the Idaho farm boy made it to Beverly Hills. I have no desire to live in Beverly Hills, okay? But what I did do is take those lessons he taught so well, and only Jim Rohn can do, and I applied the parts that I wanted in Jimmy's way. So I took the kind of context of what he provided, but I used Jimmy's spin on it because it applies to me in a unique way.
I love that, man. So let's move into leadership, and things are changing. Um, I mean, we can't all be at the office. We have to social distance. We have all this craziness going on. And so, what I want to explore with you is how your leadership has changed with your team and your clients and at home.
Oh gosh, JR, you hit the magic button. So boy, leadership has changed tremendously in just the last 8 weeks. And when I say changed, I mean perhaps in some areas of life, this is the new norm. Okay. So what we've found is a client of mine works for Halliburton. He's a senior executive, and he calls me and he says, hey, we're going to make some big changes at Halliburton. Now, I can't tell you on the air what those are because he told me in confidence. But what I'm saying is they found they don't need a 75 or $80 million building to hold people when they've already got their homes and they can buy laptops for pennies, right? And so what's happened in our world is this change. Now, to go back to leadership, though, what we did with our team, our entire team, JR, went remote. Everyone had a laptop, printer, scanner system. We wore Zoom out. So we love Zoom just like you're using today. We bought the enterprise version. We can add, I don't know, 100 plus people or more on this thing, right? And what we did is we started systematically, like we did if we were in the office, our team meetings, our one-on-one meetings. We kept those the same day, the same time of each day, even though COVID-19 had stricken us. Okay. And so leadership to me is showing your team, hey, we're not going to allow this to put us on defense. We're not here to simply say, how can we limit the damage? Nope, that's not leadership to me, JR. What's leadership to me is to say, okay, assess where we are now because of this change that we did not want or desire. And now how can I still move forward toward the goal? And so our team, don't laugh, during a pandemic, JR, first quarter of 2020, my face, half of my face, if you recall from the meeting, I had Bell's palsy for 7 weeks, man. I couldn't even move the right side of my face, couldn't close my eye at night. I mean, it's a terrible thing. I've never had it before. I don't want it again. But what I did is I noticed as we closed out the quarter, our team set a new company record of total revenues during a pandemic, and I had Bell's palsy. Now, man, that is leadership. I'm telling you, the consistent application of showing your team, hey, this is our goal. You kind of got to almost kind of bring them back and shake them over here by the shoulders and say, hey, guys, who cares about COVID-19? I don't control that. I can't change that. I can only adapt, and that's what we do. So good leaders find out for themselves that real quickly, I don't have all the control of the environment, but man, I can control what's up here, and I can control what comes out of here to my team. And that's exactly what I focused on.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Control what you can control. That is sacred wisdom right there that most people take for granted. We have so much power just in that control. What about at home? Has anything changed at home? I mean, you don't have little kids like we do running around anymore, but has anything changed with the situation?
Well, yeah, absolutely. We do have a grand kitty, and I want to be sure to emphasize kitty. Our older daughter, was in New York, and is not a very funny story, but a unique one, I guess. On March 13th, she works for NBC Universal as an intern, finishing her master's in journalism. And she has a laptop, of course, and she worked in their studio at 30 Rock, right in Midtown Manhattan, man, where the real heat of this coronavirus is hitting, right? And so she got alerted, about a week earlier that, hey, we may have to work remotely for a little while. We don't know how long. I mean, they were just trying to do what the rest of us were doing and say, hey, how bad is this? She got a note, an email, excuse me, from her VP on Friday the 13th of all days, right? If I were superstitious, I'd go, man, that's not a good day for a note like this. But the note said, do not come back into the office on Monday or until you hear otherwise. Every team except for the audio men and the TV cameramen are going to be outside the office, remote work. I mean, it's thousands of people. And so she calls that evening about 6 o'clock our time, 7 o'clock East Coast, and she says, "Hey, Dad, I got this email, and I'm going to be in my dorm room now for we don't know how long, a few days, few weeks, whatever." And I said, "Well, sweetheart, I'm looking on the map here, and boy, this COVID-19 doesn't look too good. How about we just fly you home?" So we brought her home, and in the meantime, we'd had her 1-year-old Himalayan Persian kitten. That's kind of now my best buddy. If you watch Facebook with me, she just sits there while I work the whole day. It's kind of crazy. And so we have that here. My wife and I had settled into being, if you will, empty nesters. So our younger daughter was at the University of Oklahoma getting her education going, and she was thriving. And so at spring break time for her, she came home and never left. So we have both girls home, one cat. And to be frank with me, working from home in my home studio, which I've had a home studio I've used for years, but now I've converted it more into the base for what I do. So I use the studio here as my home headquarters, if you will. And I will be honest with you, JR, I had a hard time at first separating the home life / work life. Okay, so if you're staying in the same position, I'm going to encourage your listeners to do one thing: have a hard break schedule. So what I had to do is, as I was getting in my office, I'm an early riser. I was getting here anyway at 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, I normally didn't even get up till 5:30 or so. And I found that if you don't watch out and do that hard break and take your lunch at the time you wish to take your lunch every day, like you were at the office, and put down that laptop or turn off the systems at 5 or whenever you normally would, you don't watch out, your work life will creep into your personal life. And my wife brought it up. She said, I got to be honest with you, honey, and this is no disrespect, but you've worked harder in the last 8 weeks than you've worked the last 10 years.
And you were probably grumpy to go with it, right?
Well, that's another thing too on the emotions. I try to really stay centered. Like I said, I base my beliefs, my Christian beliefs, on what I do. I try to stay centered. I try to be an object of compassion to others. And to be frank with you, I was probably a little shorter on the patience than I normally would be. I was also maybe a little less understanding than I could have been. And so what I found is that to keep myself grounded in that way is I had to take release. So I would go outside on we're in a 3-acre housing addition. It's privacy and everything. So I just go out and walk among the flower beds, and during the day, man, just to get my mind centered around, I've got this. Because what we found during this time is I was emotionally bankrupt. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I had so many people I had to support to keep them up during this time of pandemic where they were just being beat down. I had 9 team members. I've got 3 women in my household. I've got a mother and dad that's in their 80s and needing support. They're getting cabin fever. I've got a sister that's going through a terrible surgery during this time. A brother that's going through another challenge. And I will tell you, none of them were making deposits, man. They were all making withdrawals, right? And I finally got to myself and I said, hey, time out, everyone. I said, I'm going to put some boundaries on this, man. We're going to have some rules of when you can bring your problem to me and how much of your problem I'm going to solve. And I got news for you from this point forward. You're going to solve your problem. I'm going to prop you up to let you know, give you the tools to do that. That's what I had to do.
Yeah, I think you guys need to listen to that. And especially, I like that you ended it on the part with the boundaries, because I think that is a problem. Like, I'm sitting here in a room, my family's right behind me, and it's hard to get those boundaries. And I will tell you that I had to do the same thing, because my wife gave me the talk, like, you're working too dang hard. I started this show for something to positive to do during this. And she's like, you're just doing too much. And that was what I discovered was a calendar. I call it my red and green system, where work for an hour block, then there's a half hour or an hour of walking or exercise or breakfast. And so
Right.
breaking up the day so that there were designated times for work, for family, and for myself. And so that there's so much there. You guys are going to have to listen to that 2 or 3 times. So let's talk about this. This is one of my favorite things. Love. What opportunities are you loving right now?
Oh man, I got to be honest with you. So what I do believe in is I do believe in the age of electronics and instant communication and social media and all this, that you need to pull back the reins a little bit. What I do is I send out 5 handwritten note cards or letters or something. I even hand address the envelope. I could sit here on Word and dictate it all. I use dictation 99% of the time. I could have dictated the letters, but I wanted these people receiving this to know that I took my time, hand wrote this thing, put the actual stamp on it. I didn't use the postage meter. I'm not at the office. I've got a stamp to put on there. And I send out 5 of these to not just clients, but individuals that I know have been impactful to me in ways they may not even know they've done so. And so what I'm trying to do is spread this. Well, you wouldn't believe the calls I get, JR. I mean, I get these calls like, I got tears in my eyes, Jimmy. I get this handwritten letter. Who sends letters, man? And I said, well, I do. And so this man opens this letter up and he just reads this stuff. And I'm going, I'm just pouring my heart out a little bit. And a big part of it is I'm trying to build him up a little bit. And he calls me, he goes, I got tears in my eyes, man. No one has sat down and sent me a letter that tells me how I've impacted their life in such good use of adjectives and adverbs. And I said, well, I write a lot. But my point I'm making is that's one way I like to spread love. Now let's talk about another way. We have been attending church, if you will, via Facebook Live. We've done Zoom meetings with some of our church, if you will, Sunday school group, things of that nature. And I will tell you, JR, the only thing that keeps life fruitful for any of us is the constant feeding of companionship and love. You've got to show people that you have a sincere concern and empathy for their well-being. That's how you attract love. Now, I'm going to go back to Jim Rohn. Everybody goes, man, I've been chasing the dollar, trying to be successful, doing what I need to do. And Jim Rohn had a great statement on that. If you'll work harder on yourself than you do on your job, you will attract success. You don't have to chase it down, right?
I'm sitting here scribbling a million notes like, oh yeah, that's another good one. I love it, man. I love it. All right, so here's the big one that we like to close on, and let's fast forward 5 years from now. Thinking back to this time, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as the gentleman that gave his sincerest best to all of those around him in the areas of which his unique abilities or capabilities allowed. So, for example, I get accused many times from people. They'll ask me when they just talk to me. I smile a lot, man. I don't know why. I love life, right? And so at the end of the day, people go, what, are you like a minister or something? I mean, no, man, but aren't we all? And where I'm going with this is on my podcast, I say I am the only person on a podcast right now with a PhD in positivity. I've got a master's in motivation is what I tell people. And so I use this kind of personality that God's given me to look out for people, to show them they do have capability, they do have potential, they can realize it if they simply make a few changes, small at first in their life, to get big, gigantic results. So I'd like for them to look at me one day, 5 years later, look back and say, I remember the day I met him because he said one thing that helped me change my life on a new trajectory, and now my life is so much better. I don't care if it's wealth that they're after so much. I'm looking at quality of life, not quantity of net worth, because I believe with the quality of life being properly established, I can gain all the net worth I need or want.
Love it, man. I love it. This is Jimmy J. Williams, Live a Life by Design show. Look him up anywhere you listen to podcasts. He's got a PhD in positivity and a master's in motivation, and I can attest to that. That's why I had to bring him on the show. So thank you, Jimmy, for bringing the light. It has been awesome. I know people are going to love this episode. And you out there listening, if you got some positivity, if you got something good out of this, share it. Share it with somebody. Be a hero. Bring them the motivation. Bring them the positivity. You will be their hero. This is the dailybreadproject.com coming at you 10 a.m. Eastern daily.